Let's get the latest on the deadly China Eastern Air crash investigation. Live to correspondent Richard Kimber, who's watching developments from Hong Kong. Richard, aviation experts around the world are stunned by this crash and trying to understand how it happened.
That's right. I've been speaking to a few aviation analysts through the course of today, and one thing that's becoming very peculiar about the way that this plane appears to have crashed is the steepness with which it seemed to descend. First of all, it came down from a cruising altitude, something that very rarely happens with commercial jetliner crashes. Instead, they often find trouble on their descent. This happened before the plane was actually entering its formal descent. It then was encountering a very steep descent before recovering altitude and then making yet another very steep descent. So steep that analysts here say it would have encountered a huge amount of effort on the part of any pilot or a very extreme mechanical failure. And there's no real obvious way to link this to other recent airline crashes in terms of the trajectory of the actual aircraft. What's happening on the ground is there are some 2,000 people right now and probably into the night trying to scour the area to try and find the all-important black box recorder, the data recorder on that flight, to try and give more clues as to what may have happened. Also to find the cockpit recorder to see what was taking place inside that control area as the plane came down. Neither of those yet been discovered, but the whole thing is being headed up by one of China's most senior political officials. An effort there from China, say the analysts here, that this is really something they're taking seriously.
And how is China's aviation industry responding?
Well, there's been ripples throughout the day here. There's been thousands of flights cancelled across the country, and that's in part because China Eastern Airlines, the airline at the centre of this crash, which is one of the biggest carriers in China, has immediately grounded all of its Boeing 737-800 aircraft. That's the jet that was involved in this crash. Now, it flies more than 200 of those aircraft, and Chinese airlines as a whole fly more than 1,000. That's the most of any country in the world. So it's a big deal for the Chinese aviation space and a big deal for Boeing as well. Now, the way that China has grounded these planes also mirrors what China did with regards to Boeing's 737 MAX plane, the plane that was at the centre of two high-profile fatal crashes just 3 years ago. China was the first major aviation market to ground that plane and one of the last to recertify it and allow it for commercial use again. So as this investigation continues, there'll be a lot of pressure from Boeing and from the US regulators to try to be involved in this investigation, to try to see if there is some way they can help find the answers and try to get that plane recertified in China and get things back up and running, because it's a huge business in China for Boeing, and nobody wants to see this dragged out over many weeks and months, as has happened with previous investigations over air crashes.
OK, well, thanks so much for your time, Richard.